gotta start somewhere. I love that.
And there is so much out of the box. I mean, it's like, this idea that, oh my gosh, no, because I gotta be a programmer, or like, things like that. Well,
Mhm.
no, like things are easier these days.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a great lead in too. So I know we've got Jackie joined, but then she popped out. This is recorded, so it's going to get sent out as well. So we'll probably just jump right in. But I love what you said, Cecilia, about so much out of the box, because
Mhm.
one of the reasons that I wanted to start this series is that there's a lot of add-ons that are available, right, for Salesforce. That are a lot of apps that are available, and a lot of things come at a cost.
Yep.
And when you're first starting out, or you're working in like small to mid-sized business, just can't afford to add all of these different products and layers on top. So I love the idea of just showing what you can do with out of the box Slack functionality, things that you're doing in Salesforce as well. I
Hmm.
think are super exciting. So that's what we're going to get into today. If
Hmm.
you want to hit the next slide, we'll just jump right through the agenda, but we're here and we're saying welcome, so we can tick that one off. We're going to learn more about you, Cecilia. I'm going to do a quick intro for me, and then I'm super excited to get into everything that you're going to show us. So, if you want to hit the next one really quick, here's me. I'm old news, but I'm Nicole. I am the King of Prussia Slack Community Group leader, and I am also Director of Delivery Management and Operations at SaltClick. And super excited to be here with Cecilia. Onto your slide, just to intro you a little bit, and then I would love for you to talk about yourself. But I know you're a quote to cash solution architect at CLD, so we definitely want to learn more about your background there. But you play around with all types of different clouds: Certinia, PS Quote, PS Forecast. You also have your CPA degree, right?
Yep.
20 years of business operations experience, which is near and dear to my heart. I'm super excited to have you here, so thank you for joining. I would love to hear more about you. I'm sure everyone would as well, and how you got into Slack.
Yeah, totally. Well, first, thank you for having me here. Super excited to be part of this episode. And yeah, I mean, all what you said. I mean, let's start with what I do now. At CLD Partners, I do anything that implies solution architecture, anything between quote to cash. And of course, in the middle, we have all what that means. We have Agentforce coming into the picture now, all what we are going to be talking about Slack, all the back and forth thing, all that bleeds into that quote to cash process really good, because there is a lot of communication that happens in that whole quote to cash, and that's really where to me Slack shines, meaning in the being able to fit in that space where teams need to communicate, documents are going back and forth, quotes need to be approved, things need to happen really fast. So for me, that's how I got into Slack. It was more the, wait a second, I can do that in Slack. I can maybe get some emails out of the way and have all that communication happen in a single place. Like the idea of the channels, we are going to be talking a lot about that today.
Mhm.
And when we pile AI on top and Agentforce and anything that we do with that, the concept of a context, like having all the context and everything just made sense. And actually, I got into that probably because I saw some of your posts. I think it was last year when you guys were doing the 30-day Slack challenge or things like that. I mean, there was a lot going on about Slack, and I'm like, okay, I think I need to get my hands into this. And it was literally like that. So,
Mhm.
and then there are definitely a lot of resources out there that I found, and the community is fantastic. So that was also a way to kind of get into it. And in the process of learning Agentforce, right? I mean, there is particularly that module that brings Slack to the picture. That I mean, I personally love Agentforce. There are a lot of really good cases that we are doing with that. We'll see a little bit of that today as well. So again, having Slack in the middle of all this was like, oh my gosh, this is great. I gotta learn this thing.
I love that. I love that. And I think those light bulb moments that you had, oh my gosh, I can do
Mm,
this in Slack. Slack can help me do this faster or better, or it's sitting in the middle of or in front of these different systems. It's a lot, I think, that you can do in there that's just not exposed yet, right, to people. So super excited that that was part of your journey. And I'm excited to learn more about that use case that you want to walk us through if you're ready to dig into it.
Yeah, totally. So, okay, one of the things that I really love about this use case, we are going to talk a lot about that sales to delivery handoff. And the reason why I like this, let me actually, well, before we start, let's talk first before going into the use case. Let's talk first about a couple of things that need to happen. And this is really about connecting the environments. So today, we are going to definitely be talking about Slack, but we are going to be talking a lot about just Salesforce and flows. What we are going to see is really a flow in Salesforce, not in Slack. It does things on Slack, but we are going to be working on Salesforce. So one of the things that I want to make sure that everybody understands is how to make that connection, right? There are steps that need to happen so we can use one with another. So I wanted to throw the links in there. Probably you're going to share the presentation later, so everybody will have them available. But there is a really good web page, which is the one linked here, that talks about how to connect the environments. You need to go to Slack, do some things. You need to go to Salesforce, do some things, authorize them, make them talk to each other. So this is going to be critical as we go through this use case. And the other thing that I added in there, which we are not going to use today, but I thought that it was also important and kind of relevant for the discussion, for instance, Agentforce in Slack. There are extra steps that you need to do. So you are going to first connect the environments, but then there are some steps that you will need to do to expose your agent and make sure that you can talk to your Agentforce agent while being on Slack. We are going to leave that one for a different episode. There are tons of things that we can do in that area. Today, what for sure you will need to have in your environments if you want to play with this is that first one, the connecting Salesforce and Slack and making sure they can talk to each other. Okay.
Perfect.
So moving into the episode. When we think about Slack and even Agentforce and all these things, there is a lot in the front end of the process. If you think about the quote to cash, there is a lot that happens with the opportunity, with the cases, with things that are kind of like more upfront. I want to focus at the end tail today, actually. I want to focus when we already got the deal. We are way past the opportunity stage. We are at the point where we have a deal that was won, and now we need a delivery. We need services to come on and start delivering this thing. So we are in that transition where we close the opportunity and probably we pass it over to a PSA tool. Doesn't matter what your PSA tool is. It doesn't matter if you're using Certinia, Cantata, whatever you're using as your PSA tool. This use case is agnostic. It doesn't care. There is a concept of a project in whatever PSA tool you're using. So don't get stuck with, well, but I'm using Certinia or I'm using Cantata. It doesn't matter. Like you're on Salesforce and the project at some point is going to go to a stage of, let's say, in progress. In my example is in progress. This can be whatever you want the trigger to be. But let's say that we have the project because we won the deal. The project gets created and somebody changes that, or even the system swaps the status and goes to in progress. That's where we are going to start today. We are going to go through a trigger flow that does a couple of things. So we will create a Slack channel. We are also going to summarize the SOW, the statement of work, and we are going to send a message to that channel. Why this is important? Well, in the sales to delivery handover, there is a lot of information that now the project team needs to know so they can quickly start on board and get delivering this thing. The statement of work is a critical document for those that are not very familiar with services. It says what we sold, what are we going to deliver, what's in scope, what is out of scope, what are the things that we need to consider. So that document becomes almost the Bible for people as they come on board to understand what is that we are doing. And that's why, again, in this use case, we thought it was important to send it to the channel, and pin it. Like not only just send it, but later on, anybody can see that pin message. Now, keep in mind that this use case was made, I think last year, middle of last year. There were some functions that we didn't have available out of the box. Now we have the canvas. We can create a canvas and put things in there. Probably if we will restructure this use case, we will use the canvas because it's a little bit more user-friendly in terms of the UI. But it's still the same concept. Delivery needs to know really quick what is that we sold, and we want to put it in front of their eyes when they go to that Slack channel that is now related to that project that got in progress. And the other thing that we are going to do is we are going to add the PM. We already have the PM in the project, so we are going to grab the PM and add it to the channel. So they are ready to go, basically. That's going to become their space for collaboration as the project goes on. All what we are going to see today is using out-of-the-box functionality. There is no coding involved. There is nothing that I did that is out of all the out-of-the-box options that are there in Flow. And we are going to talk about that a lot because some may be new for some people. So I want to make sure everybody knows they exist. Sounds good?
It's great. And this is a critical handoff. As someone on the delivery side, we need as much detail as we can get. So I love this.
Yeah, and it's often like kind of like put on the side. I mean, there is a lot of use cases, and I will say investment on the front side, because of course we want deals. I mean, we want the opportunity to go as smooth as possible, and the quoting process and all that. But then when we are done with that, this handover is now the critical piece, so we can actually deliver whatever we sold. So wonderful. So we will talk a lot about Salesforce flow actions. When we look at the flow that we are going to actually use in today's use case, you will see it's full of actions. For those that don't know, the Salesforce flow actions are basically, think about it as pre-configured automations. Like they are given to you so you can use them right away. So they become, in our case, building blocks that perform different tasks. And you don't need code. I mean, we are going to see in the flow that we are going to walk together that you just throw them in the flow. And you will need to put some variables in there that are defined in that flow action, but they are ready to use. They are beautiful, and they are already there with the product. If you have Slack, you are going to be able to use them right away. And for the most part, I'm trying to think, I don't think anyone that I'm using requires extra licensing except Agentforce. Like I'm using Agentforce for this use case. So of course, Agentforce has its own licensing on the Salesforce side, but that's again, topic for maybe a different discussion. You're going to find them in your flows. So when you are working in a Salesforce flow, you're going to be able to add an action and select one of these pre-configured ones that are already there. And you're going to do it exactly like that. You're going to add that action element in your flow. And as you're going to see when we go to the system, actually, and we walk through the example, they have input variables, they have output variables. The output variables are going to become also critical because you are going to see that we use them later on. So you can add a couple of actions, but then you have your output, and then you can consume that later on. That's going to be super important in the use case that we are going to talk about today. Why you want to use them? Super easy to use. So they are there. Like they do things that in the past we needed to code for. We needed a piece of code to do exactly that. And you can still create your own. I mean, it's not that you're stuck with the ones that come with the system. You can absolutely create your own custom actions in Apex, but that involves Apex. I mean, like that means that you need to know a little bit of programming, even if you do it with, code or by coding, whatever you want to use with AI, you still need to know what you're doing. So those are a little bit more complicated if you are just on the declarative side of the house, but the out-of-the-box flow actions are already there. You don't need to be a programmer to use them, okay? So poke around. They are actually really cool. some of the ones we are going to use today. Well, create a Slack channel. I mean, there is an action to create a Slack channel. You don't need to do anything crazy there. If you want to do it with Flow, you can absolutely do that. We are going to do that today. When the project is going to in progress, we are going to use that action to actually create the channel. You can, out of the box, use the action to invite users to the Slack channel. If you recall, I said when we have the channel up and ready, we are going to invite the PM. So we are going to add the PM to that Slack channel. We have also, if you think about how this kind of keeps going, the project starts moving on. When we assign people, we invite them to the channel. That's another typical use case in delivery. So instead of sending an email, which is the old way that we will normally do it, oh, you got assigned to this project. Well, no, now we add them to the channel. We send them a message. They have all the context right away. Well, of course, one of the out-of-the-box actions is sending a Slack message, right? Which we are going to use right away in our use case. When the resource gets assigned, we send them a message. When the project goes to in progress, we send a message. We pin the SOW. We say something in the channel. We do it with that send a Slack message. There are a couple that I'm not using today, but I just wanted to make sure people know that they are there. It's look up a Salesforce Slack channel. That one is also super important if you don't know the channel. In this case, we are going to create it so we know exactly which one it is. But you can also look up a Salesforce channel in Slack, which is going to become really useful later on when something happens in the system and you want to publish that in Slack. Well, you need to know where you want to publish. So that one becomes really, really handy when later on for other processes. And the other one, of course, is archive a Slack channel, which this one is not minor. You don't want tons of Slack channels out there that are not useful, no relevant anymore. You want to have a good archiving strategy because otherwise it becomes out of control. So this one allows you from Flow to control when to do this archiving of the Slack channel, which you can decide when it is. Maybe it's 3 months after the project is closed or whatever it is. That you gotta keep that in mind if you're gonna start playing with Slack channels. Questions, comments? Are we good to move into maybe a little bit more of the flow?
I think we're good to look at the flow.
Perfect. Okay, so we are gonna go to the system, but just wanted to kind of like quickly walk through what is that we are gonna see. So like I said earlier, like we have a trigger. In our case, the trigger is gonna be when the project status goes to in progress. That's when in Flow, we will create that Slack channel. And there is a little bit of a process here. We are gonna get files that are stored on the project so we can summarize them. This is where Agentforce comes into the picture because we said, well, we want to send the SOW summary in that message. Well, Agentforce is great for that. It can read the files and it can create that summary for us. So that's what we are going to do. And then we are going to send that welcome message with the summary in the Slack channel that we created here. We are going to pin that message and we are going to add the PM to that Slack channel. All that is represented here in the flow, which is the one that we are going to go through here in a moment. So this is like the way that we structure this flow. And although this is all nice and pretty for the slide, you should start with something like this. Like if you're starting with a use case where you're like, well, I want to send a message in Slack and I want to do this and I want to do that. Well, start mocking it up. Like don't just go to the system and start throwing things out there. Just get a good idea of how the flow of the information should go, because that's going to help you stay on track and get more organized and really identify what is that you need to do before you put your hands in the system. Okay. I think we are, let me get all this in here. Little summary before we move actually into the system and we look at the demo. So there are much more out of the box Slack actions out there. I put the ones that I thought were the most relevant. Check them out. I mean, like go to your org, if you have a dev org, just check them out, put Slack, and you'll see them out there. But keep those in mind for sure. We are gonna see that in my flow, but this one is really important. Anything that you do that involves a Slack action, you're gonna add an asynchronous path in your flow. We'll talk about it when we go to the system, but this is really important for things to work. It's not something that comes naturally when we think about flows and record trigger flows. But this one, even if you need to put a post-it in your desk, like remember that needs to be in the asynchronous path for everything to work nicely. Now, this, I want to just make sure that we are very transparent here. We are using Agentforce in this use case that uses credit consumptions. I mean, that goes through the Agentforce standard consumption structure. You don't have to use Agentforce to communicate with Slack. I mean, I decided to put that in this use case because I wanted to send the summary of the statement of work. You don't have to. You can send a simple hello message and you're not using any credits. But I want to make sure that everybody understands the difference there. Using Slack actions in a flow don't impact anything around consumption. There is nothing around using Slack actions that involves Agentforce unless you put Agentforce in there. So like very different things, and there is a lot of confusion of what creates consumption, what uses credits, what does not. Slack actions don't use any Agentforce credits. So I wanted to make sure we clarify that. And then the other thing that I want to also mention is I love flows. I do Salesforce flows like all the time, but they are also Slack workflows. I mean, it's like, that's the beauty of the platform, right? We have tons of different ways to do things. And that means that you need to know the both. You need to know both sides of the tool. You need to know your Slack workflows. You need to know your Salesforce flows so you can decide where to put what and how to connect them so you can make the best out of the tools. And that, I mean, that to me is critical. Like, you cannot just know Slack or just know Salesforce. You need to know both so you can design that flow of information using the best of both worlds. So yeah, I mean, with that, I think we are at demo time. Let me actually make this smaller. Any questions before we move there?
I think Jacob was just calling out that he was checking out how to do kind of like the actions and everything in different CRMs and without Agentforce. But to your point, you can kind of pick and choose what systems you're using it with, right? And where you want to generate the actions from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And with the whole Agentforce thing, like, again, I kind of want to make sure that we separate them both because Slack and Agentforce play together super nicely. I mean, you can put your agents in Slack, you can call them from Slack, you can do things in Salesforce with Agentforce and then push them to Slack, but they're totally independent. Like, you don't need to do anything with Agentforce to get Slack and Salesforce to talk to each other. So you can totally scrape that out from this use case, and the use case still holds true. You can still talk between Salesforce and Slack nicely without Agentforce in the middle. Okay, that's a super important distinction because there is a lot of noise around that. So okay, so let me make sure that I'm sharing the right screen. I think I am. You should be seeing the flow. Yep. So let's talk about this flow. So as I said, this is a record trigger flow. I'm in Salesforce. I'm not in Slack. Okay, we are gonna be going through the Salesforce flow at this point. And I want to reinforce this. See how it's on the asynchronous path. When you are on your record trigger flow here, if we scroll up, my screen decided to refresh, so let's give it a moment. There we go. This is how you do that, right? I mean, like in the bottom of the screen, you will see that you can add that asynchronous path. That's when that's where you're going to be working for all the Slack actions. And you can see my trigger there is when the status goes to in progress. Nothing crazy in there. Here we have the first action. So this is the one that I mentioned earlier where we are going to create a Slack channel. And when we added this action, you see here a lot of variables, right? All this set connection values for Slack. Those are predefined in this action. I didn't do anything to get those boxes in there. Like as soon as I select the create Slack channel as my action, I will have the option to populate these values. If you did all your setup right, the one that I mentioned very, very early on, like connecting your Slack environment with Salesforce, you will see values to populate in these boxes. If you cannot see your Slack app or a workspace or this Slack app in here, something went wrong. Like you need to see those values. So that's your first clue to know that something in the setup between the environments did not go right. Go back to that link that I sent and or that will get sent and check out your steps because you should be able to populate this. And something else that I want to also show in here, if you notice in the bottom, this action also comes with output resources. I didn't do anything to get those. They are part of the action. So I know that out of this action, I'm going to get a Slack channel ID. That's important. We are going to use that later. Okay. Now, the next thing that I'm doing here is, if you recall, we said we want a statement of work summary. So that's what all this does. This is a subflow that gets files on projects and grabs all the IDs and all that. This is like a Salesforce quick reminder how Salesforce stores the files. We will have the content document link that is basically the link between, in this case, a project and a content document. So that's all the subflow is doing, is getting those records, and then we are grabbing those documents, sticking them in a collection, so we can now in this get records actually get the files. All this is just to deal with the way that Salesforce stores files, okay? This is where Agentforce comes into place. In this call explore file on project action, this is a prompt. I will quickly jump into that so you can see what that looks like. This is a very simple prompt in Prompt Builder that basically has two inputs, files and a string. Why do we have a string? Well, if you notice in my flow, I'm asking the question, can you summarize the SOW for this project in 10 and 50 words or less? This is really when we are telling Agentforce, hey, there is a file and I want a summary of it. The only reason why this is done in this way is because this prompt is reusable. I'm using it for tons of other use cases. So in this case, we want to summarize the file. In other cases, we may have different questions. Part of a different episode, which is prompt reusability and how to prevent the organization from having 20,000 prompts that do the same thing. But that's all this is doing. It's basically sending to Agentforce that question like, hey, I have a file and I want a summary. And this prompt is going to answer with that summary. At this point, we are gathering data, okay? Now, another action. Here is where we send that welcome message in the Slack channel. So same thing, a lot of variables that will get populated only if you did the setup correct. But I want to highlight this. See how I'm using the output from that create Slack channel. So we created the channel first, and here, when we are sending the message, I'm using that channel that got created in that first step. That output variable, now I can use it as an input variable in this action of sending a message. And I'm building the Slack message, like what do I want to say? The only reason why I'm doing that is because it's just easier to put all what I wanted to say. So I wanted to say, welcome to this is the project Slack channel, this is what the project is about, and I'm passing the prompt response. So my Agentforce, of course, answer back with the summary of that SOW, which is what I wanted to pass in the message. So I'm using that as part of that initial Slack message that I'm sending in the channel. So super important things to call out. The ability to use outputs from other actions that happen earlier in the flow, Of course, the action needs to happen before you hit this one, so the output is available. And in the Slack message, we can easily pull whatever resource we want, like in this case, the answer from the agent with that summary of the SOW. Are we good so far? Okay. So,
Cecilia, one question.
yes.
Do you want to speak to any kind of error handling?
Yeah, there are going to be a lot of errors potentially. In this flow, I don't have error handling, which of course is not recommended at all. Now, what I will say though is that as you are debugging this, you will be able to see where you hit a snag. I mean, you will be able to see like if any of these configurations were wrong, if any of these things were basically like not right. Now, typically you will add this fault path, like Flow has out of the box. Like if I click in there, I can put in here like send an email or pop a message in the screen or something, whatever I want to happen if this fails. So best practice in Flow, you should have a fault path. In this case, we just didn't. But that's the way that you will normally have it. Like any time that you have an action, particularly when it comes to this updates, like any time that there is a DML, it is definitely best practice to have that fault path. Yeah, that's a very good call out. And you can do whatever you want in there, right? I mean, and something again, like depending on your use case, but if you start adding multiples, then you want to probably kind of like connect them and oops, I didn't like that. But you probably want to connect this fault to this one, like if you're sending a message or an email or something like that, so all the faults are kind of like handled in the same way. Yeah. Okay, so the next thing that we are doing in this flow is we are actually pinning that message. We are saying, okay, well, we send the message, but that's not enough. We want it to stay there. We want it to stay static in the top because for other resources that join, we want them to always be able to refer to that. And again, we are using that out of the box action and using as inputs the outputs from the other ones. So in this case, we are actually using this send message, the timestamp, to basically tell which message do we want to pin. I mean, we want to pin something. Well, it's this one that we sent in here. That is this variable here. And of course, we are using, again, that channel that we created above in the very first step. And I'm storing the Slack channel ID in the project. This, again, I think this is out of the box now. At the time when this was put together, this was not. So there was no easy way to know what was the channel that got created for the project and things like that. So for this use case, we're storing that Slack channel ID back in the project so we can use it later if we want to send more messages. And the last one here is start building that collection of user IDs to add to the channel. This is a little bit of a hack, I will say. So this invite users to Slack channel requires a collection. It doesn't accept like a single value. So even if you have a single value, you need to add it to a collection first. So keep that in mind if you are using this invite users to Slack channel. So that's what we are doing here. We are just creating a collection. In this case, only the PM is the one that gets invited, but in this last step, we are actually sending that invitation. We are grabbing the PM and sticking it into this Slack channel because as the PM, they probably care about being in here. So that's what the flow is doing. So it sounds like a lot, but really, again, if you think about that flow of information that we saw in here, it's really this. Like if you can map this out in your use case, then it's much easier to then go into the flow and actually grab the actions and start building around this. But start with a good foundation, with a good design that will guide you through all the steps, the order of events, and the things that you want to do. So let's see it in action. Should we try and see if it actually works? Because you know how in demos nothing works, right? So
That's how you know it's a real demo.
Exactly, yeah. So let me actually, there we go. Let me log in again. I think I got disconnected from the org. So let's try again here. Okay, so let me actually go to my projects and I think it's this guy here. Yeah, I think it's this one. Let's try here. So I'm tool agnostic. I'm not using any particular PSA tool. Like I said earlier, you can have any PSA tool that you want as long as it's on the Salesforce platform. So let's trigger it, right? So I have my status in here. Like we said, this is gonna get triggered when the project goes to in progress. So that action that we just did is the one that actually kicks everything off and basically calls the flow that does all the steps that we heard earlier. So let me jump here. So if you see here, I'm in my Slack. There are no hacks in here. This is my real Slack. So if you see here, the channel got created with the message. There is, again, some formatting here that if we had the canvas, we can handle, make it prettier and things like that. But you can see it in here. Welcome to the Lima Full Implementation Slack channel. This is what the project is about. We start with a little statement that is a summary, does not replace the need of reading the SOW. So people still need to do that. But it basically says, what are we doing? Like, this is a statement of work that it's between CLD Partners and Lima. We are re-implementing Sardinia, and we are implementing PS Quote. Tells me what's in scope, what's out of scope, what's the approach, what are the different things that are in the SOW. And of course, if I want, I can go to the org and I can see the SOW. Like, that's the link to the document.
Mm-hmm.
So the beauty of this, and of course it added me because I was the PM, so I got added to the channel automatically. The beauty of this is that since now it's pinned, this is going to start having all kind of history, messages, things that are going to happen, that we can always refer back to what did we sell, what's in scope, what is out of scope, and all that without reading the SOW really. So it's a really cool use case to, again, put in front of people what they need to know no matter what. And just like streamlining a little bit that process of creating that channel, making like a single space for collaboration for the project, and reducing the number of emails. I mean, I hate like the email, oh, you got a sign, you have a new project and things like that. So anyway, that's basically what this use case is really about.
And then Jacob asked a question too. Is there anything when sending the messages to deal with any kind of markdown characters?
Yeah, so it's really hard to control. And that's why I kind of like prefer going with the canvas approach now, because you can control much better the way that the message is formatted. Like if you see the message, it really doesn't look pretty. I mean, it's kind of like pretty plain, but there is only so much that we can do with the out of box. Now, there are some hacks that can be done if you are more handy and you want a program, like if you want to get more into the coding, but using the out of box, we are a little bit stuck with the way that the message is being sent.
And you could start to play around with Slack. Oh my God, why am I blanking? Block Kit Builder. So you can build messaging in there so you can get the formatting for the markdown.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things that I wanted to make sure for this use case that we stay in the out of the box, but like if you expand and you want to get a little bit more in the non out of box, there are cool things that can be done to handle that as well.
Yeah. And I love the call out for Canvas.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's, again, when I worked on this use case, that was not an option. Now that is an option. I mean, there are so many cool things that can be done with that.
And then Magesh threw out a comment. I wonder if you can integrate Slackbot and have Canvas created, updated with this. How cool would that be? That would be super awesome. I don't know that we can like get access to Slackbot like that yet, but that would be super cool.
Yeah, and I think that also is a matter of time, right? Because I mean, Blackboard is kind of new. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that we'll see a lot of improvements with that
Yeah.
as well. I mean, it's great the way it is, but I think
Yeah.
that we'll see a lot of coming in that area.
I agree. Any other questions?
Again, I hope like at least this got you guys thinking a little bit about this flow actions, that you get excited about trying some, even with like small use cases. Just start small. I mean, get a flow where you just send a welcome message, create a simple channel, but just know that they exist. They are super easy to use. And anytime that you're in a situation where maybe there is an email going out from Salesforce or things like that, well, maybe it's a good candidate to revisit and see if it should be a message in Slack instead.
Love that. Love that. Let's get rid of meetings and emails and just have some.
Yes, and actually work.
Cool. Greatly appreciate you joining. We're going to have another session in February, mostly geared towards Slackbot, so get excited for that. And I appreciate everyone coming. Appreciate you coming today, Cecilia. Thank you so much.
Yes, absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
Have a good one. Talk soon.
Bye-bye.